I'm headed to Little Switzerland, North Carolina in the Pisco Wilderness Forest. Never been there before. There's always a lot on my mind when I start off on a trip like this. Been kind of a tough week in the NyghtFalcon world, and I'm trying to focus my attention on what I need to do. I find that when I'm getting ready to leave for an assignment, I'm as emotionally involved as I am intellectually. Not because I'm nervous. I very rarely do, even when I'm being shot at, or most recently in a plane that could very well go down and end up killing all of us. It's more, what do I want to show the world? What do I want to say to the world? What in my life is causing me the most pain, the most reflection, the most joy? I'm particularly captivated today by the way I think the deep blue that's fading to a shallow gray over the edge of the horizon is shaping my world. And I confess that much on my mind is a very deep sense of longing and incompleteness, and I know from the past that I'm a wanderer. And so I suppose that in some way it's most appropriate that as I start this 3-hour drive, I'm consumed again by longing and by the need to move, by that sense of incompleteness that has driven me from, I'm assuming, almost the moment that I was born. So that's very much on my mind, and as I look at the world around me, I'm very much seeing the world through those emotions. I know, a strange metaphor for sure, but I think one of the things that predominantly shapes my art, my photography, is the fact that I see the world through my emotions. There is no pretense of objectivity. I am always seeing the world for the first time, as I feel the world every moment differently and uniquely. I'm on North Carolina 226 Alt. It looks like autumn is already coming to this part of North Carolina. I've been steadily climbing up the winding roads as I go. Some cemeteries, not much going on here economically. Usually about this point I begin to focus, pull myself back. The radio has been off for at least the last hour and a half. I felt no desire for anything but silence. Not atypical when I'm on the road, particularly when I'm getting closer to my destination. I'm struck here by the shadows. I passed several creeks that look quite beautiful. I'm also struck by the poverty. There's even a sense here that time has stopped. These people are caught somewhere else past, and even though as that truck went by there might be some who are more present than others, there's still a sense that very little has changed here, and that begins to change the way that I feel. I'm attuned to what it must be like to be here in the wintertime. I love that building. I'm attuned to the senses of gray and old stone, and to cabins being winterized that no one should really be living in the wintertime. To that sense of lost in times past. It's always critical at this point for me when I'm entering into an assignment like this one that I begin to let go of the world I left. I want to make sure that I'm here in the most complete sense of present to hand, as Heidegger would say. And it's almost as though the more that I'm climbing up the mountains, the more I am leaving behind, disappearing, becoming one with this place, these people, this way of life, that cold, separate, rugged, fundamentalist, lifestyle that hasn't changed here in probably several hundred years. We're down in an apple orchard. It's now about 8:15. I'm fascinated by the way the road wraps, caught up in the redness of the apples. The wind has picked up. I'm about to cut through a field because there's a particular tree that caught my eye, laden with red apples. But beyond the redness of the apples, I'm fascinated by the way the branches are hanging, twistedness, brokenness of sorts, I suppose, and the juxtaposition of the red of the apples with the way the branches are almost weeping. Goldenrod, bright in the morning light, leaves everywhere. I'm wishing I could see more color than I do at this time of day. And there's the tree. Broken and twisted, and yet somehow still alive, still bearing fruit. I'm going to put this down. If I can find a place and get some photographs. Wow. So much brokenness and yet so much alive. Kind of overwhelmed with sadness today. I'm not sure why, but something about this tree speaks to that sadness. Well, video cam off, time to shoot. I'm finding that I'm lost in the shadows. You can see the tire tracks, every little shadow, particularly today. I'm watching the sun wrap itself around the trunks of the trees and around the redness of the apples. I'm imagining the redness of the apple and how it feels, how it would feel if it were against my skin. If I could crawl into the shadow, if I were a piece of the bark. I'm caught by the way the road wraps around. Seems to settle into nothingness. That sense of complete isolation from the world. Just the silence of the wind coming through the trees. I've always been fascinated by that sense of human aloneness, even more so today. I know we talk a lot in the NyghtFalcon world about detaching in order to engage, but I suppose in some respects there's only so much detaching, only so much detachable. And as I said, I'm not sure specifically where I am today. That sense of longing, of the absence of memory that Edna St. Vincent Millay talks about, very much a part of me, part of how I'm seeing the world today. I can feel that sense of loss and separation and the isolation of the trees in this orchard that's been left more or less to decay. No longer commercially viable, as they say. And something as simple as these neglected apple carts, very powerful this morning, very, very, very powerful. So, I'm going to go lose myself in them now. I'm fascinated by this bush of sorts. It seems to be in bloom. I'm not sure why, actually. It could be a function of all the other things going around in my head. I find that on almost every shoot, there are an array of emotions that seem to catch me. And today there is a certain melancholy about the world. I suppose in part because I know winter is coming and I can sense death. The death of all of this. The barrenness that's coming. I feel it everywhere. I feel the isolation. I feel, I suppose, as though the trees themselves know that soon the barrenness of winter is coming. And there is that sense of the moment being even more fleeting, and I can't seem to get enough of it. I'm in a race, I suppose, as they say, the proverbial race against time. It's so much a part of me right now that I feel it everywhere. I feel it in my feet, my legs, my hands, my bones. And it makes me miss Isis even more than I already do. And I'm fascinated too by the way the road wraps and twists and turns. I've taken a number of photographs lying down on my stomach. I'm covered in briars. Back to the moment. I was walking down the road and I caught this tree. I know, it probably doesn't look like much. I'm not sure what it is either, but then most of the time I'm not. Something about the way the arms and limbs are bent, I suppose. And I remembered an old Paul Simon song, Time It Was, and what a time it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidence. Confidences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left to you. And when I felt that, as I passed this tree, I knew I had to stop. And I'm changing my lens because there's a certain feeling I want, a certain sense of the way this is draped and broken and worn by time and winter. After 9 o'clock now, starting to warm up. The sun is quite high in the sky. This is probably the last entry I'll make today. There comes a point at every shoot where I cease to be able to articulate what I'm feeling. I'm so caught in the moment that I just lose the ability to speak. I can talk to you if you ask me a question, but I'm not here. I'm about at that moment now. I've changed lenses to the 16 to 35. And for some reason in this space it speaks to me. It speaks with me. It speaks about what I'm feeling. The sadness and the pain that I feel here, the loss, the grief, the separation, the abandonment. It's here. I can touch it now. It's wrapping its fingers around my heart. I'm going to let it be. And I'm going to let it have its way with me, I suppose. I can hear the silence. I can feel it in the wind. I can taste it. And the way the sun is breaking over the world around me. So I'm going to go now.